one is going around and you're kind of to yourself and you're just observing things and taking, trying to get the best moment and framing and whatever it is that you're trying to do here. And then on the other side, you're more engaged with talking to people, right? You're maybe, depending on the type of portrait you're taking, you're using a longer focal length, right? You're maybe using an 85 or 50 or what have you, versus a lot of street photographers. Well, I would say, at least a lot of them will shoot more of like a 35 millimeter full frame equivalent, and or wider, right? Depending on where they're at. I feel
Hmm.
like in LA, it's like a 50 millimeter area here. For me, anyways, that's as far as how I shoot.
So you're on 50 millimeter.
Yeah, well, for the Fujifilm line of lenses, it's the 35 millimeter.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah, because of the crop
the crop
factor.
sensor. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And so yeah, and that's just because we're a little bit more spread apart out here. People are mostly in cars. It's not a pedestrian um, society here in LA for the most part. Unlike, I love going to New York and Tokyo and England and going to these, city centers that are a lot more pedestrian friendly and that they're a little more crowded.
Hmm.
So a wider angle is going to help you. A 28, a 24 is great for that kind of stuff because you're literally right next to somebody, the whole time as you're walking around. Versus here, there's arm's length and a few more arm's length between people. So for me, I like using a slightly longer focal length, 35, or I'll bring out the 56 millimeter, which is sort of an 85 equivalent.
Hmm.
And I like the compression. I like the look of that. And
Yeah.
so, again, I restrict people from, hey, don't, street photography is only wide angle lens. Nah, man. Like I've used the 90 millimeter, which is a 135 equivalent. I'm not gonna restrict people from um, using whatever tools that they own.
Hmm.
Just as long as they're having fun. That's what it is for me, anyway.
Yeah,
It's
for
just all
sure.
about having fun, and the pictures are, they come, they one, going out for one day, I might not get any photos that I like, which is fine. And then one day I'll get like four or five, just because the light is good, the groove, the place, the people walking around, um, and I'm snapping really good shots here and there.
Hmm.
So it's like kind of like fishing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get
Some
the
days you get
catch,
some.
and sometimes you
Yeah.
don't.
I do have a question about the lenses and like the camera you use, Rinzi. Like, is it pretty discreet? Because I have heard from street photographers they like kind of that more low profile rather than like a big DSLR or a big mirrorless camera.
Yeah. It helps. I mean, because
Mhm.
for me, it only helps so far as I've got to carry it around all day.
Yeah.
So if I'm gonna be walking around for like 4 or 5 hours, I'd rather it be a lighter camera. A lot of street photographers are more of, it's got to be a daily camera, right? An EDC sort of thing.
Hmm.
And so, like for example, the X100V, the most recent X100 version, is great. Is great, and you don't even have to think about the lens that you got to slap on there because it's already on there. It's a 23 millimeter, so it's a 35 equivalent. It's very diverse focal length. It's and so that's all you would need. Just that one camera and one lens. Walking around everywhere, you can have it on you all the time. It looks good if you if you have it on a camera strap around your neck. It looks like an old film camera, especially if you get the silver and black version. Um, and so yeah, the smaller cameras are good, and it also, yes, sometimes doesn't attract as much attention. Especially like the black version won't attract as much attention if you're like pointing cameras at certain thing versus of course DA50 with a 70 to 200 or like a
Right.
16 to 55 or whatever focal length zoom lens out there. It's a lot bigger, but I think at the same time it doesn't matter. I've walked around with the D7, when I had some Nikon gear, um, D700 with a 135 millimeter, walking around with that. It was a lot. It was a lot to carry. And again, it was more because, um, at the end of the day, I was like, man, that was a lot to carry all day versus my X Pro 2 and now, X Pro 3 with, even the 56 millimeter on there. It's a lot lighter than DSLR setup. And so for me, it was more about the weight and being able to carry something a little more lightweight and I could put in a little bag versus like, people noticing me because I was really trying not to think about that anymore. So for me, it doesn't matter what camera you use. But I do also accept that yes, certain cameras will get you certain attention, but at the same time, you can, for me, it's just like, well, then you got attention, and then what? Just get the picture and then walk off. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely smaller. I mean, that's why the iPhone is great, and the X100, and even like the XT3, and a lot of their, the XE4, which I tested over the pandemic. That one's a really small one that's really nice, and then you can change the lenses on that. But that one with the 27 millimeter is a great walk around sort of kind of camera. It's just, yeah, again, like most people who are getting into street photography, they're gonna get it into it, and they wanna bring a camera with them everywhere. So a smaller, lightweight one is gonna be better for that kind of thing versus like a hunk of metal and plastic DSLRs and big lenses and stuff like that. But that's really what it comes down to for me.